Good morning, everybody. Good Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and I'm online now for a Charter Moms chat. And so I do this around 9 a.m. on weekdays, and it's a way for our online community to stay in touch um, while things are kind of disrupted because of coronavirus. So we can't do in-person events, and it feels like the news changes so fast that it's kind of hard to plan ahead that much. But we have some good stuff to share today. So hold on. So one thing, so I had my hair pulled back because my kids and I just got back from a walk in our neighborhood. I haven't had time to really fix my hair, but we switched to doing our walks in the mornings because it was starting to get hot in the afternoons. So that's just part of getting ready for summer, and that's kind of the theme this week is doing the transition to summer. And we've also had some guests, right? So yesterday we had Becca McNeil talking about her special education series of guest posts on San Antonio Charter Moms, and she's got more guest posts coming this month. And then we also have a guest tomorrow. We have Andrea Savatini, who's she works at Brooks Academies, and she also has two daughters at Brooks Academies. She has a young baby at home, a dog, and a husband who works as a nurse. So they have a really busy house, and I'm really excited to have Andrea as a guest tomorrow. That's Thursday at 9 a.m. at Charter Moms Chats. And if you have a question that you want to be sure to ask Andrea. Then you can leave a comment on this video, and I'll carry that over till tomorrow. So what I wanted to talk about today during the chat was we had a guest post yesterday by Amy Johnson, who is also the founder of Dog Friendly San Antonio. So if you are a dog lover, you should definitely visit her site there. She's got lots of great ideas about taking good care of your dogs, and activities you can do with them. But her guest post for us that just published was about educational TV shows. So Amy's been sharing resources. Let's see, her previous post was about like sort of PE and like physical activities you can do with your kids at home and indoors, which is great. It will be great for rainy days, like ongoing, but especially these days, if you're trying to stay safe at home and practice social distancing, then having extra activities you can do at home is great. So basically, like, here's some real talk. Those of us who are able to work from home, that's a blessing, but it also means that there's times when we feel kind of torn. Like, I want to be a good mom and I want my kids to keep learning, but I also have work to get done. I've got bills to pay. And a kind of a good compromise for that is to find educational TV shows that your kids can watch. So they can relax and watch TV, but that the TV shows have some educational content to them. So you don't want to rely only on educational TV for your kids' education, but as kind of a part of a balanced diet, right? They're doing their remote learning packets or their online classes. They're doing some Zoom calls. Then they also can do some video gaming, and they can do some playing in the backyard or doing crafts. But educational TV is part of a balanced diet. So the Amy's post has 10 recommendations for educational TV shows. So I just want to give you some highlights. And one thing I really like about how she designed this was that these work for different ages. So if you have like depending on what your kids' ages are, you'll probably find something that works for them. And some of these are classics, and some of the ones that are kind of new to me. So some examples: Magic School Bus. That's kind of a classic. Okay, so and one that was new to me is called The Who Was Show, and it's on Netflix, and it's about history. So each episode features historical figures, and the website has activities that tie in with each historical figure. So you might be familiar with the kind of the book series, the kind of cute cartoon character versions of historical figures. So this is a TV show based on that series. Okay, so then she's got a recommendation for a cooking show. It's called Nadia's Time to Eat. It's on Netflix, and the host, Nadia Hussein, former winner of the Great British Bake Off. So that sounds really fun because, we're doing a lot of cooking at home, so you might as well lean on the TV show to get some inspiration, and your kids can get some ideas from the show. So she recommends Bill Nye Saves the World. So that's Bill Nye the Science Guy, right? So yeah, there's she's got 10 different recommendations of educational TV shows, and I think this is great because um, like I said, we believe in real talk. So, we're not I'm not gonna pretend that everything we do every minute of the day is educational, right? So some things are really constructive and some things are just kind of goof off time. And, educational TV is kind of in that sweet spot where you can get some work done, get some chores done, or just take a nap. That's okay. Every now and then, just take a nap. Um, but your kids are learning from it too. And, you can talk about what they're watching, so that it could, create some peace. Maybe if there's a show that bridges enough different age groups, then something that siblings can do together. So, that's, yeah. Um, so I've got a link in the description for this video. I hope you'll take a look at Amy's recommendations. Tell us what works for you. Um, and then I guess so. I also wanted to bring up. Um, I guess this kind of harkens back to last week's topic, which is looking ahead to the fall and what will back to school look like. But I shared on the page and in the group um, an article from the San Antonio Express News. So yesterday, Superintendent Pedro Martinez from San Antonio ISD uh, met with the editorial board of the Express News over Zoom, of course, and education reporters Alia Malik and Krista Toralva were in on it too, and they asked some questions. And so there's now this article is not behind the paywall, so you don't have to be a subscriber to Express News to read it. Although it is important to support local journalism, so if you can afford it, get a subscription so that these journalists keep their jobs. um, but I wanted to highlight this is probably the most specific thing that I've seen so far about what back to school would look like for San Antonio. And again, this is for San Antonio ISD, not so it doesn't control what all the districts in San Antonio are doing, but they talk to each other, right? And they're getting their guidance from TEA and from like for sports, they get guidance from UIL. So I wanted to kind of highlight what some of the things are. So I've got anyway, I didn't print it. I've got it on my phone. So um, okay, so here are some possibilities. Okay, so what if let's say there's a classroom that's built for 22 students. Maybe there might be only 12 students assigned to that classroom. And how would that work, right? Maybe they would go in shifts, right? Like one group would study in the morning and then go home, and another group would come to school in the afternoon and then go home. And in the interview, Superintendent Martinez said the schools might stay open until 10 p.m. if that's what it takes, to get enough shifts in. It's kind of weird to think about, but this is what's possible. Um, it's possible that they would close the cafeterias and then students would eat at their desk instead of eating in the cafeteria. Um, he said it might be a long time before they could have sports events with crowds or fine arts events where they filled auditorium. He said basically until the Spurs are playing again, then schools may not be able to have crowds at sporting events either. Um, okay, what are some other points that he made? Okay, so SASD is still planning to call for an election for school bonds, and that would be on the November ballot. And they still want to make improvements to campuses, and I think that makes sense. Like if they need technology on campus, they need space for the students to spread out. You know, I guess it may be tough politically to just get the bandwidth, if voters are distracted by, a crisis situation. But I think SASD, doesn't want to lose momentum. They want to keep, they've been doing a lot of bond construction on campuses and building a new headquarters building and stuff like that. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, it looks like their SASD will have a bond on the November ballot. So he talks about okay, so the SASD school year actually is one of the earliest start dates of any of the districts in the city. So a more typical start date would be like late August. But SASD has District of Innovation status, which allows them to start earlier. There are a handful of other districts in town that also have District of Innovation status, and you can find out which ones have it. But if you look at we have a blog post about school calendars for this past school year. So, that's if you're wondering, like, does your district have District of Innovation status? That could affect the the date for back to school. Um, so yeah, the default date for back to school is August 24th, but district inundation and charter schools can have earlier um, starts for back to school. So they're also SAT is also looking at having summer programs that would start in mid-July, and that would be targeted towards the students who need the most help to catch up. Um, so that's interesting, but that might, I guess what I'm not sure is, um, I'm not sure if the summer school would that be in person? It sounds like it is, but they would have to be spreading the students out. Um, okay, so what else? What else do we know? Um, so that in the fall they might, he says they might go in smaller groups. They might have like temperature checks, like so when students come to school to get their temperature checked. Um, that's a logistical challenge, getting everyone um, getting everyone checked. They might have to add more barriers, like they might have like clear plastic um, um, partitions between desks for staff. I don't know. And they, some staff members might have to wear masks. So um, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a really interesting article. I mean, it's just hard to, so like half days versus alternating days. Like, um, it's not like those are both a dramatic change from what we're used to, and it sounds like they haven't made a decision yet of like which model they would go with, right? So, would it be, students, um, some students go in the morning and some go in the afternoon. That's the half day split. Or would it be, and I guess they would supplement, they would do the rest of their lessons through blended learning, like through the online learning, which, SASD has been getting devices and hotspots out to students as fast as they can. Um, and I guess if they did the, um, kind of the split schedule or alternating days, then what they would do is like some students would come like, I don't know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some students would come Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Again, it that dramatically changes like how the buildings are used. They might be being used later in the evening, or they might be being used on Saturdays where they weren't in the past. Um, so yeah, and then I mean school buses. How do you spread students out on a school bus? Is it like one student in one window seat, another student in another window seat, and so it's only two students per row in the bus? I don't know. I mean, these are things that none of us had really wrapped our heads around before. Um, yeah, and it's not clear. Um, it's not clear how long this would have to go on, right? So in the interview, Superintendent Martinez speculated that he thought it was unlikely that they would have sports in the fall. Although I think some of the coaches kind of got on Twitter and had kind of walked that back, saying, we haven't heard anything from UIL, we don't know. That's still up in the air. But it's too early. I mean, it's too early to say about the fall, and it's definitely too early to say about the spring, right? So maybe when a vaccine becomes available or a treatment becomes available, or if there's better like testing and contact tracing, that might change the situation. So um, yeah, let's see what else. This is a really interesting article. Okay, so one of the questions that came up is just keeping track of students, right? So there are still some students, particularly in elementary school, that are just that they have not been able to contact, and you know to some extent there's always some movement, right, of like students, like their families just move to a different part of town, or they might move to a different country. Just you know and yeah, just it's just hard to know. So I think that's one reason why they are eager to get campuses opened up again and track people down. But because then there'll be more like face-to-face interaction. It won't be relying on parents to be doing like to be supervising the kids learning. Um, I think one thing that came up, it's not so much covered in the article, but well, no, it is. How do families feel about sending their kids back to school? Will families feel safe sending their kids back to school? And that's still an open question. Superintendent Martinez said that the district would make an effort to communicate with parents and explain, like, how what precautions they're taking, and hoping that parents do feel safe taking their kids back. So his perspective seems to be that families who are trying to homeschool, that's going to create learning loss. I don't take that as a given. I think that some families who are homeschooling, the kids may be doing just as well or even better than they were doing in school. So don't assume that homeschoolers are failing. Some homeschoolers are doing a good job. Um, you know, but definitely the district, they want their students back. They want to collect the attendance money. They want to, offer like the kind of the additional services like meals and counseling and mentoring and things that SAC can offer in addition to just the classroom instruction. Um, so that's Anyway, so today it's kind of a double issue today. We talked about Amy's guest post about the 10 educational TV shows, which is something I think will really help while we are keeping our kids at home, and it'll help this summer, like once the distance learning stuff from school ends, and then in June and July we have well, it's kind of falls back on the parents to keep our kids occupied. Um, but I didn't want to neglect that. I thought that SASD article in the Express News was really interesting because it was more local and more specific about than anything else I'd seen so far about like what back to school would look like. And I recommend reading the article, and also the embedded in the article is the 1 hour video of the editorial board with their questions and the education reporters talking to Superintendent Martinez. So good stuff there. We just my advice is be creative, stay positive. Do the best you can with the distance learning for the next few weeks. Find ways to make summer fun and memorable, even though it's going to be different than any summers we've had before. And stay active in the San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group, because we're going to keep you as informed as possible about what to expect for back to school and how to make sure your kids continue to get a good education and get prepared for the future. So okay, and then like I said, we have a guest coming up tomorrow. We have Andrea Sabatini, who's with Brooks Academies, and she's going to be talking about her children's experience with virtual learning, and also with how they're running tele special ed services at Brooks. So, oh, I got a little comment, Tiffany. Tiffany Hart says thank you, Inga. Thank you, Tiffany. I really appreciate your support. All right, so I will be back online tomorrow with a guest. Take care.